In today's episode of Spiraling Up, what happens when 16 firms merge together into one? Today, we're talking with two of the leaders behind the remarkable launch of Sorren, a new top 50 accounting firm. And then we're going to speak with Hinge's managing partner, Carl Feldman, and get his thoughts on the hot M&A market that's out there right now. Guys, it's the M&A episode of Spiraling Up. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Spiraling Up, the podcast for professional services, marketers, and business leaders. My name is Austin McNair, and as always, I am joined by my colleagues and co-hosts, Mary Blanche Kramer.
Hey, Austin.
And Mr. Joe Pope.
16 firms, that sounds like a heck of a party.
Yes, it is. And I'm super excited for today's interview. As we get started, thank you to all of you listening. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe button, leave us a comment. Let us know what your favorite part of the episode is. All your engagement helps us grow the podcast. And for those listening, leave us a review. Same thing. It really helps us get feedback on the podcast and continue to grow what we're doing. And if you want to send us a note, you can always do that by sending us an email to podcast@hingemarketing.com. You guys, we got the M&A episode happening today, mergers and acquisitions. Joe, this is something we've written a lot of content about, but I can't think of a time in my time at Hinge where what's happening in the space of M&A has been more important to the kind of stuff that we do.
Yeah, it's omnipresent, frankly. And if the organizations that come to us with some of their challenges in the marketing and branding space aren't actively participating in M&A, it's usually coming up that it's a factor that they're paying attention to or something that is, resonating. It's interesting. One of the biggest reasons why we felt like our guests today were good examples is because they weren't necessarily a bunch of like a large firm, for example, swallowing up a bunch of small firms. They were a lot of small groups that came together in a like-minded approach. So the types of folks that we know are listening to this podcast, they were that type of group. So how is one organization's way of going about this effective and so forth? But I think in general, though, we know that this is not going away. This is the reality of kind of what we're living in. And as organizations are continuing to look to grow and find pathways to do so, this is a consideration that they need to pay attention to.
Yeah, Mary Blanche, and in our conversation with our guests, I mean, part of the M&A side too, and like in the integration, it's not just about branding, marketing, and I mean even business strategy. Like a lot of that integration has to do with like firm culture and that kind of thing as well, which I know you wrote some questions about.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why I'm glad that we brought our guest Carl in today to talk about a little on the M&A side too, and that being one of his areas of expertise. But I mean, culture plays a huge part in this, and I think when you're bringing something like 16 firms together, I mean, that's going to be more important than ever to evaluate what each of those individual cultures look like, and then how you bring that into one cohesive structure. So I'm excited to talk to our guest today.
All right, well. Without further ado, let's go and meet our guests. We're super excited to get to our next segment with our guests, but first, I wanted to let you know about something that we just finished writing and just published. It is Hinge's new lead generating website guide. You guys know we love talking about websites. We've taken all of our collective thinking on websites, everything I could get my hands on, every perspective, every interview. We took it. We put it into our newly refreshed lead generating website guide. And people can get that right now. It's free. It's on our website, hingemarketing.com. And you will get the brand new edition of our guide. And we hope you find it helpful. Now let's get to our interview. Well, we're honored to be joined by two incredible guests today. First, we have Tara Davis. Tara is the National Marketing Director at Sorren with more than 16 years of marketing experience, including 11 years in the accounting industry. Tara leads a firm-wide marketing strategy focused on brand growth, innovation, and alignment with Sorren's strategic goals. Welcome to Spiraling Up, Tara.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
And with us as well, we're so happy to be able to get the chance to talk with Heath Alloway. Heath is a growth partner at Sorren, driven by a deep commitment to building a thriving culture, developing future leaders, and helping people and organizations leave a lasting legacy. I love that introduction, Heath. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, we've sort of teed it up a little bit earlier in the episode, and we have a fun segment planned with you guys today. But I just want to start here. I just want to lay this out on the table. 16 different firms merging together, like actually 16. For those in our audience who are unfamiliar with the Sorren story, I was wondering if we could just start and have you guys give us a breakdown and some background on how this all happened and what roles did you guys play in this, huge brand launch.
Yeah, we are gluttons for punishment. That's that's where it starts. It grew to 16, but it really started with 5 founding firms, and those firms had a really lengthy relationship through the BDO Alliance. Our 5 founding partners were on the same managing partner roundtable, and so they had known each other for years. They'd been talking about their struggles for years, and one day just kind of decided that, what if we tried to do this together? I really wish I had been a fly on the wall for that conversation. But so that's where it really started, was just this idea. I think it was probably a year or 2 in the making before it actually happened. But that was the foundation, which is a great foundation to start on. It wasn't, a bunch of random firms coming together. So they were able to find an investor that could help us launch this forward, and Harris, legacy firm named Harris, which is where I'm coming from, based in Idaho, was the first one to go, and that was January 2024. And we were really going to take our time. We were going to have these 5 firms come together throughout 2024 and do it. We weren't rushing anything. We were trying to make sure we were quiet about it too, and just kind of trying to make sure that we were thinking through and taking care of our people and analyzing where we wanted it to go. So that's kind of where it ended. I think we had 6 firms by the end of 2024 silently kind of coming together. And then 2025 is when we started to, we had spread the word internally. We'd reached out to other people in our network and found some other firms that loved the idea. They wanted to be part of it. They wanted to contribute to it. In the end, we all benefit from coming together and sharing resources and creating this new infrastructure, and it was solving all these problems that we've had for years in the industry. And so it got popular pretty quick. And then in 2025, that's when we had additional firms come on. So by the time we launched our brand, it was 13 firms coming together, and that was May 2025. And today is 16. So it's been an impressive journey, and a bunch of like-minded firms, which makes everything easier. But that's the high-level story.
Wow. Yeah. And I know we're going to cut into some more of the details there, especially on like the marketing and branding integrations that you've gone through in your experience there, Tara. Heath, what was kind of your role as all of this was happening?
I chose to be there. So I had a little different way of getting involved. So I was with Upstream Academy, and I knew Josh and the Legacy Harris firm. And I had kind of I'll say a peek behind the curtains and knew some of this was going on. And then I guess it was late 2024, had some discussions about some ideas that have been kind of brewing in my mind for the last 7 or 8 years. And I had talked to a couple of different firms, and Josh and the Harris team was the first firm to jump at some of those ideas. And so I joined the firm on April 1st before the new brand launch. So a lot of this was already in the works. I wish I could take credit for a lot of that. But I joined the team April 1st, and then became part of Sorren. And you talked about the change aspect of it, the number of firms coming together. It's a lot of the stuff that I love. I love the change and working through that. I love culture. And building that within the other firms, and going back to bringing that many firms together. I actually had one retired managing partner, when I was talking to him about it, he said, "I've been praying for you every night." That was his words of advice for me.
That's so well said, Heath. And I know when you referenced your work with Upstream, I know that a lot of that you've been seeing this bubbling beneath the surface, not just with Sorren, for example, but across the industry in general. I'd love kind of your input on kind of how, in a sense, this M&A idea, and Sorren's example for one, but certainly across the accounting space, professional services. How have you seen these things really start to evolve, especially in the last 5-6 years?
It's been, the last couple of years have been, I think it's accelerated quite a bit. Let me preface this statement with I am a big believer that every firm has to do what's right for them and where they want to go as a firm. And not only that, whether you stay independent, you go with an outside investor, you decide to merge into another firm. I truly believe it's the American dream. I mean, you have a chance to be in a business or be an owner in a business. And so I just wanted to preface my answer with that. I think there's driving factors, Joe. I mean, you look at technology costs, you look at all the stats, fewer people coming into the profession. That's not just our profession, by the way. That's
Right.
into the workforce in general. And so you have those kind of discussions, and you think about what is it going to take to run a firm and the infrastructure. And firms they hit a point where are we going to stay independent? And if we are, how are we going to have to invest? Am I going to go back to my 8 or 10 partners? And are all of us willing to do this? Or can we find a merger opportunity? It's a good fit for our firm, our culture. We see opportunity, and then we make the right fit, and that's the decision in the direction they go. I don't think it's going to slow down anytime either, Joe. I think it's I think it's still going to be front and center for the next few years.
Yeah, and you referenced the culture piece, and you say a number like 16. That's a lot of different cultures. How do you guys tackle that on a day-to-day basis?
I'm going to start with we have our annual partner meeting coming up in November, and our theme for that annual partner meeting, the first one we've ever done, where this will be the first time many of us will be together in person. The theme's rooted in legacy, the power of one. So honoring our legacies, but coming together truly as one firm to do something special. And another thing I wish I could take credit for, but I love that it was already in the works. The firm had invested a substantial amount of time on surveying. Tara, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had like 800 or 900 responses from all of the firms, all levels, regarding firm culture, the things that they loved the most about it. That led to cultural workshops with people at all levels from different offices where they came together. They worked on what are the values, who do we want to be? And then from that, our new vision, mission, and values was rolled out within the firm. And then each office, each service line, they are going through a thematic goal process that is focusing on one of those cultural values. And that is a project where everyone in that office, they're coming together to focus on that project to live the mission, the vision, and the values and bring all of that to life.
Yeah, and while we were separate, we all had foundational elements that were the same, and that's what those interviews brought out. We had an outside consultant help us with parts of that, and it was what they were noticing. They were starting to get the same answers from everybody. We interviewed employees, we interviewed clients, other people in the community, and brought it all together. And everybody was saying the same thing about our firms, our reputations, and what we stood for. So then you already have a great foundation. And I guess to go all the way back to the beginning, not every firm is a good fit too. We want to make sure that we're all good culture fits up front. And I think there was a lot of work done in that area through conversations and and just establish relationships too. I mean, we already knew quite a bit about the firms coming in, most of them. So those secured the way we were able to come together because everybody had input in it and they had a voice in it. And that was absolutely most important to us.
Followers of Hinge, this podcast specifically, will know that Hinge is a huge believer in due diligence. And hearing that research led the way, it's music to our ears. I mean, we preach that all of the time because, frankly, you're in the professional services space. This is not an impulse sale. You've got relationships. You've got trust. If you don't build these things, you lose them. And you then will lose the opportunity to have success and growth. So founding a brand in research we completely agree. We're part of the reason why we wanted to have y'all on is because there's a lot of alignment here in best practices for organizations that grow faster. And when you are growing through M&A, doing it the right way is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
We briefed you guys ahead of time. You guys are completely prepared here. You know that on our podcast, we like to have a little bit of fun. We mix it up. We kind of come up with these games. We come up with creative challenges. We'd like to now turn towards kind of our creative challenge of the episode, which I know that we're going to be able to dig deeper into this story and your experience in this space. Mary Blanche, do you want to introduce and tell us what is our challenge for the day?
Yep. Let me tee it up a little bit for us here. So now we're going to be diving into the trenches of post-merger integration. And when you integrate any new acquisition, you inherit a complex web of integration challenges that touch every part of the business, right? And at the heart of all of this complexity are real people with legitimate anxieties and fears about their careers and about their firm's future. So in this segment, which we are calling the M&A brand therapy session, we want to turn to your firsthand experience and leadership in this space and ask you, how would you help address these different M&A anxieties and strategically guide team members through these very real integration challenges? So Austin, I think you're the first one, so I'm gonna kick it over to you first.
Yeah, sure. So from the perspective of a marketing manager, going into an acquired firm or their company is being acquired, Tara, how would you address this kind of like anxiety here when someone comes and says, "I don't understand. We're gonna have 13 different websites now. We're gonna have 13 different email systems, 13 social channels. Like, how are we going to bring this all together? Like, how long is this going to take?"
It definitely is a challenge to come together. Everybody has their own way of doing everything, but on some
Right.
level, when you come together in the end, if you have enough foresight, you're going to get the best of what everybody had. So a lot of research goes into this first, just like developing any kind of brand. When you're trying to bring these things together, there's a full research mode of what are you communicating through your websites, what's working, what's not working, and also like setting egos aside for like, let's just be open to what's not working and how we could do this better. But establishing our processes, the technology that we had, the evaluation period was a few months of what our starting points were, what the processes of each firm that has, and there's all different levels of sophistication. Some did no marketing, some did a lot of marketing, some had marketing people, some didn't. So it's trying to bring that together, but then it's like you're identifying where you want to go once you're all together, and then how you get there. So your roadmap is the most important thing, and communication is the most important thing. But we were in a position just on Sorren's side where there actually wasn't a ton of technology to choose from. Not all 16 firms has sophisticated marketing departments, so that was a little bit of an advantage. And I think in my past M&A experience, that's also the case, is typically you're kind of bringing people into what you've already established. So for the website, we downloaded all the content from every single website coming in. We looked at who had blogs, who had content, whose content was working, who had great social channels and engagement, and what were they doing that worked well. And then we started over, and then we created a new plan. And we also looked at our own team. I was, I guess a year ago now, a team of 2. Believe it or not, I'm a team of 10 today. And we strategically decided what roles we were going to bring on to support the initiatives we wanted to do, but we were slow in that and trying to make sure that we weren't jumping the gun. You can't go from 0 to 60. It's not a race, and it is going to take a few years, and that's okay. So you have to identify what's realistic up front and what timeline you can do that in, and also push back. But what we've gotten out of that is a website that represents every single service that we had individually, but now unites them all together. It starts to bring teams together. It's actually been a really cool feature for us where it's our own directory. Now we know everybody that works here. And It's also been really good to just get face. We're starting to get some video on our website, starting to get some more personality on it, and bring our voices into it. And then social, that's another, you've all got different ways of, some had great strategic plans, and some had set up a page 10 years ago and hadn't touched it since. And so our whole goal, when you first come together and you're bringing firms together, the goal should be to retell your story.
Yeah. And Heath, so from your perspective and coming in as the growth partner and hearing some of these different fears on the marketing side, how do you hear those types of concerns when it's talking about technology integrations, websites, so on and so forth?
Yeah. Well, Joe, before we jump in, you said it was a game, so I wanted to ask, are we keeping score? So, like, how do I know how I did at the end? Like, are we going to do a comparison between me and Tara?
We might put up a poll and
Okay, okay.
we'll let you
Good deal.
guys
Yeah.
duke it out on social media, because that drives engagement, and we're all about engagement.
I like it. I like it, Joe. So I'm going to go back to something Mary said about the real fears or the anxieties, and you mentioned like websites, you mentioned technology integration, all of the different moving parts. From a foundational standpoint, what I've observed the past several years is that most people tend to focus on the negatives first of everything that could go wrong. I mean, there are studies that show, like, what is it, like 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day, 80% are negative, 95% are repetitive. So automatically people start off thinking of everything that could go wrong.
Right.
I always try to challenge people instead of that, like thinking in the future, if it hasn't happened, why would we not focus on the things that could go right? And when you talk about that many firms coming together, and from a growth in a firm, we just accelerated our scale across the firm. Now we have a team that's supporting that many firms moving in one direction. So I think just addressing like the negativity and trying to get you in a good place, it goes back to the communication piece of it, of like, why are we doing, like, why did you do this in the first place?
Right.
If your agreement was to come on to do something special together, yes, there is going to be some change. Change is hard. There's fear in that. But think of the things that could go right. And then that way, like, most of the negativity comes in when you set expectations here, realities here. And I don't know if people can see my hands, but expectations are usually way higher. And I've seen in a lot of mergers or change, it's like, and I'm guilty of this too, where I went in and like almost tried to sell the idea of it. And that's not effective communication. Telling people what to expect, the change of what to expect. How is this going to impact me? And that helps you move, whether that's branding, whether that's tech stack, whether that's processes. I'm not saying it solves everything, but it's a foundational part that I think sets you up for success.
Yeah, I was reading an article last night. I'm blanking on the exact author of it. Maybe I'll figure it out and edit it in post-production. But specifically, it was talking about mindset, and when it comes to elite runners. And the idea is that if the runners, and they did this like large scientific study, the runners that have a mindset that's more, I've gone this far versus I have this far to go, and the performance that you'll find in those types of runners and their experience, that there was a notable scientific difference between those that are thinking more in that positive light, that more direction. This is why we've done this. This is why I ran this place, versus, oh, shoot, I've still got miles and miles to go. And I hear you talking, Heath, and it just directly resonates to that whole psychology of setting that kind of expectation. And Tara, I know you were referencing that expectation piece too when you were talking through some of that initial onboarding and so forth of these different sites.
Joe, from like a CMO standpoint too, my advice to them would be, don't sit back and wait. Be an advisor in your own role and have a plan. And then when you can communicate that plan to the partner group, it's going to get them more in line and on board with what you're trying to do. And I think that's an important part too in guiding a lot of that change, especially from a marketing or branding standpoint.
So we got some more questions for you, and we didn't say it at the jump, but we're thinking they're going to actually get harder as it goes along. So
That's the game right there. It's like that hot wing show where the questions are going to get spicier as we go.
I like it.
we'll let you tee off this one first. I'm going to give you the prompt. We've got a partner, so a leader at one of these acquired firms, one of these 13, 16 different organizations. And they were a believer in the project, but they're also a real big believer in their brand as it stands today. And they're worried specifically, hey, we've established this strength and we have this region on lock. And while we want to bring that to the table, we're worried a rebrand is going to erase all of that equity that we've built over these years in our region. How do you handle that type of question?
And Joe, I think it's one, I would acknowledge it. I mean, for a partner, or if it's like passed down from generations, that's an emotional thing. So I think just knowing that going into it is important. Also, going back to that, you made the decision to go this way, so some of that should be flushed out before making that decision. But I would also, like, if a partner's feeling that way, my advice to them is a brand isn't going to change the relationships that you've built. If someone's going to leave your firm because of something like this, maybe the relationship wasn't as strong as you thought it was. And I would recommend that they focus on the controllables, and that's how they show up. That's their attitude. That's how they communicate to their clients, and I think that's a big part of that. So that would be my advice to a partner that maybe feeling that way. Your brand is still what you think and what you value and what you believe, the things you say, the things you do. You do have some control of how that goes in the future. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I do think that from a brand perspective, you have a lot of opportunities to still tell your historic story too. That doesn't have to start over. We all have a foundation that we were built on. And so you can do that through your marketing materials, through your website. You can talk about your entire history, not just the one that starts at a merge. And especially through your website, there's a lot of opportunity. I've seen a lot of firms do a great job with a historic timeline that talks about many different firm names that they've gone through and who was involved in that name, and have that be a permanent part of your website. But then also, when you talk about different locations you have, if different locations you have different histories, highlight them. They're somebody that being led to that page is going to call that office is from that community generally, and they want to know about who they're going to work with. So I think you should never be afraid to talk about it. Also, we've had a question internally come up recently, actually, about awards we had won in the past with our old name, and they got piled up and they got put in the corner. And I was like, "Whoa, what are we doing? No, like this is who we were. This is how we got here, and this is something we're going to continue to carry forward. We just have a new name, but we're the same people. We're still here." So.
Okay, Tara, we've got a kind of a spicier version of this question for you, so I'm gonna go there next. Now, this is another partner of one of the acquired firms, and they're concerned. They're thinking, my grandfather built this company. The firm's name reflects his legacy. How will that history really be able to come through in this new brand?
That's a good question. There's a lot of different angles you can take with that, but I would challenge that partner to ask their client if they care what the name is, and if that's the person that's working with them, and it's not generally going to be. And so that name that you have that is related to a single person, it has now become a team. It's now representing a team either way, which is a benefit for you. But you don't ever, just like I mentioned, you don't want to erase that legacy either. And so if you decide to move away from these historic names like this, you're still paying homage to that in your materials and visually and within your offices and the way you talk. But knowing that the name is not the reason why the clients choose you. It is the relationship that they have always had with you. So the messaging really should be, we're still here. We're still here, but this is now what we can do for you.
That's right. Yeah, I love how you describe that, Tara. I can remember clients of ours having that exact same concern, and your answer is pretty much right in line. And you pointed to the research, which is super important, because at the end of the day, that brand is not a name or colors or a logo. It's not a building that you were in. It is the intersection of your reputation and your visibility. And that reputation that person's grandfather had developed so many years ago was established, and we're transitioning that reputation through into what our new organization is going to be. We used research to make sure that we were pulling the best of the best, and we're maybe throwing and redoing some of the stuff that didn't really work all that well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heath, what do you think of when you hear my granddad built this place?
Yeah, this I'm going to laugh ahead of time because this may sound a little morbid the way I'm going to describe it. But yeah, just hearing Tara talk and hearing the group talk, I think about, like, I'll use retirement instead of the end of my time. How about that? Because I was going to say, like, at the end of my time, I don't want people to remember me from, like, as a partner at Sorren or whatever firm I'm at. I want them to remember me from the impact or the difference that I made in their careers or in our clients. And I grew up in a family-owned business, and I remember my parents going through and they actually sold their business. And so just thinking about my grandfather and my father, even that legacy, although it was not in public accounting, I'm still trying to live that legacy in everything that I do. And so that, again, maybe that sounds a little morbid, but that would be some of my advice, of similar to what Tara said, like, do your clients, do they care what that is? It's more of like, what difference can you make for them?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're a PG-13 podcast, so you can be a little morbid, but not too morbid.
Gotcha. Good deal. Good to know. I didn't know that ahead of time.
All right, I want to pivot us a little bit into the realm of HR. Now we've named her Deborah, and she is the head of HR, and she's been recently elevated from one of the acquired firms. And, she just feels completely exhausted from, feeling like she has to be a rumor killer. People are kind of creating their own assumptions about what's happening. And she's just thinking to herself, gosh, like, what do I tell them? Tara, what would be your advice to her in that situation?
I think a rumor mill is kind of a natural part of change. And I think the best advice is to get out in front of it. I kind of lean back on everybody has a different communication style. Some people want to see you face to face, they want to be part of a town hall, they want to be part of a meeting. Other people are going to be maybe more introverted. They want to read what's about to change or what's going on. Or other people are too busy and they just want to find the information when they have time. So my best advice is that your message is spread out there on every communication channel that you can think of so that you're speaking to all different styles. People are wondering what's going on, and be honest and transparent about what's happening and what it means for them, but also focus on the benefits for people too. There's a lot of positivity that's happening, and it's easy to get caught up in the change, and change is scary. And then also, if you have, kind of look at how that conversation is happening between different departments. Are there some departments maybe more worried than others? Go to those department leaders and make sure that they understand how to communicate this to them. Give them as much information as you can. Get in front of everybody in their department. Attend one of their meetings. Like, I'm a big proponent of just getting out in front of it and ahead of it, but also answering it transparently. You're trying to build reputations as you all come together. You're all getting to know each other too, and you need to build that trust. And you don't do that unless you're really attacking it nonstop.
Getting in front of it, over communicate. As a marketer, I've learned as I've kind of gotten more mature in my career, just like the need for over communication. It's like you almost can't over communicate, I think, in a modern professional working environment, just because people are moving at a very, the pace of life, like work life, is just so fast right now, and like that over communication is almost necessary sometimes. Tara, what I'm wondering is, like, what is like the groundwork that has to happen before the over communicating starts? Like what's the essence of, like, okay, we're going to be communicating about this new, brand acquisition integration project. Like, what are like the 2 or 3 things that are like, okay, these are the details we have to have so that we can over communicate about them?
I think it's best to have some honest conversations with a few different types of audiences. So, where we went, where I go back to your client, your community, and your employees. If you had conversations with each of them first and really trying to understand what their concerns, what their worries are, that's how you get ahead of it. You start to create some messaging that stills that fear. But I think that creates some good groundwork for staying ahead of it in the future. But that would be my best advice.
One of the other things that I think, whether it's HR, partner, whoever it is, I also think taking the time to seek to understand or to truly listen, because in our world of busy, like, I think we think sometimes our listening skills are better than what they actually are. And so sometimes, although it's a rumor mill, if they're hearing things, sometimes there might be some truth to it. So I would also say listen to learn, and then that can give you insight to what people are thinking. So then you can step in and help address the rumor mill and the negative thoughts. I would challenge them, like, if they are only thinking about all the things that could go wrong, write down what could go right too. Because like this is all you're thinking about, you're missing all of the upside and why we did this in the first place. So I think those can be two pretty powerful things when it comes to communication and trying to address the rumor mill.
All right, Heath, we got another one here for you. This slightly spicier concern or anxiety is coming from someone who's just been a bit more regionally based, and their concern is, we've been building deep client relationships within our local network for years now. And now one of my clients thinks that we've been bought out by the man. What should we be telling them now that we've been bought out by the man? We're going to lose our regional flavor.
Are we at like a level 3 spice now? So can I give like a spicier answer?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
absolutely.
We're here
I would
for it.
say
Turn it
I would
up.
say it sounds like an excuse in some ways of like all the reasons why it won't work. And I get the relationships that have been built and all those efforts, but back to relationships, they're built on trust. Just because something like this happens doesn't change trust. Could there be change with what we're doing? 100%, but some of that goes to the regional salesperson or it goes to the partner. How are you effectively communicating that? Why do they have that perception? And then, thinking about your own messaging of like, what does that mean to the clients? Gosh, you still have me here regionally. You still have my relationship. Oh, by the way, now we have these resources, skills, expertise, and people around the firm that you did not have access to before. So it's thinking about the messaging and overcoming those hurdles. Sometimes when you're asked those hard questions, I think people naturally go on the defense and they can kind of fall in that trap instead of like being truthful about this is why we're doing it and what's the value? Why is that important to you? And so hopefully that helps them guide through that kind of thought process.
Well, no, and also during that conversation, I think too, you can fire back at the client like, hey, Joe Smith, remember last year when I had to send you elsewhere for your cost seg study? Well, hey, I don't have to do that anymore. And these decisions are made based on a need and a desire to grow in what you can offer your client. So the full scope of why we're doing what we're doing is so we can better serve our client. So hopefully the message that you respond with, it supports that.
I love hearing how you describe that one too, Tara. Hinge has done significant research into buyer behaviors. And at the end of the day, what tips the scale the most is that you solve their problems. So if you weren't able to solve their problems, but they really loved you, they loved working with you, you were that, quote, trusted advisor, which you should never use as a messaging term, by the way, but you were their trusted advisor. They believed in you. And then you kicked them to the corner because you just didn't have that expertise. Now you do.
Yeah.
And so if you can solve those issues and you make that a part of your larger message, there you've got some strength there.
Absolutely.
Joe, one last thought on like the being bought out. I think we have a pretty powerful story to tell there too, because there are negative perceptions about private equity coming into our profession, but it was truly a strategic decision. And if you are going to have an outside investor or even from an M&A standpoint, it has to be the right cultural fit. And I will say just from my experiences, although, yes, we have an outside investor, they've been pretty hands-off on how we're running the business, and we're running it the way that we see that can make a positive impact. And so I know I wouldn't go necessarily like that's not what I would say to a client, but we have a lot of autonomy and still well over half owned by CPA'S. So there's still a ton of autonomy there.
I love how you talked about the fit if you are bringing investment with a PE group, for example, where somebody didn't necessarily have the right fit. What were some of those cultural pieces that you've seen, like where PE went bad, for example, or the group had a different vision? Like how can you kind of see those things in advance? Is it there's certain questions we should be asking?
I think so. Some of the stories that I've been told, this is before like they've ever joined or went the private equity route. It's been on the front end, and
Sure.
they weren't even red flags. They were fireworks going off of like it's not the right fit of like a first 30-minute call with the managing partner and they're telling them who they already have lined up to come in and run their business. That's not going to fly in our profession. And so it's been examples like that of like, it just rubs people the wrong way. And firms have to answer two questions. Is it good for our people? Is it good for our clients? And if they can't
That's
answer
right.
that, it's usually a telltale sign.
All right. Well, we still haven't talked about the CPAs. So in this next one, I have a CPA here. I'm going to name him Samuel because I really like giving my people names here. But, he's feeling like, his career path is a little bit out of his hands now. There's a bigger entity involved that's guiding the strategy. And, he's wondering how is this going to really impact my career trajectory? Heath, let's go to you with this one first. How would you respond to that?
For Samuel, I would have the conversation about looking at like the facts and what's going on. And I could point back to you look at all of our service line leaders. So you have assurance, tax, CAS, advisory. Those leadership roles were not there before Sorren. Now we have people from legacy firms stepping into these leadership roles. We have key industries we're going to market in. We just announced national, regional leaders for some of those industries. Those positions were not there. When you have these leaders from the local offices that are taking on these new national roles, that's an open door opportunity in their local office to step up, raise their hand, take on more responsibility. And so that would be the starting point. Not only that, we are investing, whether it's through Upstream Academy or other, educational career development type opportunities. There's a lot of that going on. There's coaching, there's feedback. So there's all of that going on, investing in our people. And so that is where I would start. And then this year I could be wrong on the exact number, but with some of that change, we're right in the process of rolling out the vision for the path to partner and clear guidance on that. And we are naming, I believe it's 12 new partners this year. And we already have our bench strength outlined for potential 2 to 3 years down the road. And so there is a world of opportunity to take on new responsibilities, potentially new service lines, if they want to take a deeper dive in an industry and build, their reputation in that industry. It's an open door invitation. I would tell them to lay out their career path. Where do they want to be 3 years from now? Now, what does it take to get there? And then focus on that.
I mean, I think we have an example of that on the call with us here. I was talking to Tara earlier this week just a little bit about her career path and her story. And I don't know, Tara, if you want to share quickly, but I was really inspired, hearing you describe kind of your trajectory of like where you started when you started with Harris and to where you've arrived to today.
Yeah, that's a front desk to national success story. That is, I mean, that's the benefit. I've
Wow.
been with the legacy firm Harris for 12 years. So I was able to see a lot of different paths, but I started at a firm with 20 people. I actually really intentionally loved small businesses. That was just kind of my bread and butter. I like to get in there and do everything for them, administrative. But marketing is my background, and it is also it's my passion. And so while I joined a firm that didn't have a dedicated marketing role, I weaseled my way in there. Within a year, I was amplifying the things that we were doing. It was kind of a lot of low-hanging fruit, to be honest, and with making a really good impact. But that's all I've ever wanted out of my career, was just to make an impact. Actually, that end of that first year, I also joined the Association of Accounting Marketing, which I will plug for, because that was really game changer for my career. When you're working at a firm that you don't have a lot of others that can mentor you in the marketing space, you have to go elsewhere. And that was life-changing. It opened the door to how to market for this industry specifically. And I met so many great people over the last 12 years through that association. But I was in a department of one for a very long time, about 10 years. I was able to finally bring on an intern after a little while. And then like I said 2 years ago, it was me and an intern. And then, we know Sorren is happening. We know that we need to start building pretty quickly here to support this. And I brought on 2 managers next. One to kind of oversee the digital side, to support what we were about to roll out, and then one to support the brand and communication side. So I had been aware of all hats for over a decade, a department of one. Those are my people. And I still lead a department of one circle at AIM. And I said, please don't kick me out of here, because I will always give back, because I know how it feels to try to be tackling a lot. So it was a lot of right place at the right time. And I'm grateful that I had a decade under my belt before this happened. I think it gave me a really good perspective, though, on how to build this and how to message things and how to help firms still stay local, still feel local, because that's where I came from and that's where I've been my whole career. So we're bringing in other resources to help me think national now. But I definitely, it's most important to me that we don't lose that aspect and that personal touch that we had, and that we build teams the right way to make sure that we're supporting every office. And I look at every office as like an individual, and how do I help them? And it gets hard, but it has been a very cool path.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're huge fans of AIM. Hinge has been working with AIM for a decade plus now, partnering them on the budget benchmarking study. These types of associations across professional services as a resource they're just paramount. It's so important. And when folks can match up with mentors, specifically folks that can help drive that pathway, that's a great resource. And sometimes if you're the Sorren of the world or whatever it might be, just pushing our team members into those types of resources and supporting them and paying for the conference or things along those lines is the answer. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to directly come from the larger firm. It's just providing that pathway for growth, however it may be, and that can be unique and different depending on who the staff member is.
Definitely. That might be a piece of unsolicited advice I might give, though. I remember going to AIM conference my first year, starting to meet people, and I overwhelmingly identified that I was the smallest firm there, for sure. I could not find another single person that had under 20 people. And however, my takeaway from that was that I then realized in that moment how much that tiny firm I worked for valued marketing and the fact that they sent me there. And so my advice, I tell this to other marketers and departments all the time, advocate for yourself always. I also advocated as a department of one for progression in my own career path and title changes and advancement. And I kind of got made fun of internally, like, oh, who are you managing now? But it wasn't about that. It's like, we also have career trajectories. And by doing that, I was able to align myself to, other departments, even as a department of one. So I kind of was pretty intentional over the last decade of that. Like, those things are very important to me and my career is very important. And I just kind of wanted to show growth. So that helped in the end as well. So my advice is just to not only the partners that are leading firms, advocate for your marketing people to get more resources and start to bring you the ideas. And you'll be shocked at what will happen because that resource there is hundreds of people that do exactly what you do. Like, that's pretty rare.
It's great advice. It's real sound advice. And for folks who hear this, almost certainly we're going to clip it and put in a nice little video clip because that was fantastic. But being able to hear that type of thing from somebody who's lived what you've lived already in the time period that you've started at that Army of One and now leading a group of 10 as part of this group that's coming together, it's exactly the type of pathway that by asking those questions and making that advocacy for yourself, what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
So we've got one more left, and we're going to take it to a person who would maybe be at the other end of their career spectrum. So somebody who's been around a while. I see that this person's been given a name, Sally. So Mary Blanche got into the show notes and gave my person a name. Sally is our longest tenured employee. So she's been around 30 years, 40 years, something along those lines. And she comes to the table post-integration and says, I'm looking across the board here and I've been here a long time. I know where all the bodies are buried. How do I know my voice will be heard in this new organization moving forward? Let's say, Tara, you go first. Ladies first.
So I feel like the biggest benefit that person can contribute is their experience and their expertise. And that can be an incredible way to move this firm forward, is sharing your knowledge. So, you'll be a part of process changes, you'll be part of technology changes, and those things are harder at the end of your career, but the experience that you have and the way you work with clients and the relationships that you've developed over the time, that's what you can teach to the rest of the people that you've now just joined as well. And so I think if you really just stop and reflect that you have a lot to contribute in that way, you start to see where your voice can be heard. So that would be that'd be one area that as you retire, there's a lot that's lost as well. And so even if you're 10 years from retirement, that's not too soon to start making sure you're bringing other people into relationships and you're starting to teach the younger people coming into your firm how you truly develop the trusted advisor. What is the next word we're going to use? I don't know. But how you
we need to get rid of that one, though.
How you become that for your client, because it's not it's a hard skill and it's one that's just developed over time. So be part of that.
Yeah. Heath, how are you talking to Sally?
I would tell Sally to make sure to just keep speaking up, because sometimes people will sit and not share their thoughts or their opinions. And hopefully that's built into the culture ahead of time if she did have a voice beforehand. So I've watched leaders that will remain silent instead of truly speaking up when they truly believe something. So that would be the starting point. And then, if they are closer to, retiring, they've been there a long time. My guess is they probably have some mentors. They probably have some long-standing relationships with those that are stepping into leadership roles. And I would just encourage Sally to continue to lean on that trust in those relationships and making sure that her voice is being heard. So that's what advice I would give to her.
Well, Tara and Heath, I just want to say thank you again for joining us on the podcast. I mean, this has been such a unique perspective. Again, just a remarkable journey you guys have gone on over the last couple of years here as Sorren has launched and these firms have come together. Man, I feel like there's still so much left on the table that we could talk about. So maybe we'll do a part 2 one day. But where can people learn more, follow you guys, and kind of follow what's happening with Sorren?
Yeah, we're pretty active on LinkedIn at the moment, but Sorren.com is something we're continuing to build out. Even our employees are going there our team is going there to really learn what all Sorren can do now. So head on over, check us out.
Well, thank you guys so much. And next we'll turn to our pivotal story.
Forget the old, sleepy world of professional services. M&A is raging in the lower middle market, and it's being driven by a force that is completely changing the competitive landscape for small and mid-sized firms. We've got the Professional Services Industry Report for the first half of 2025 right here, and the data reveals a massive spike in deal volume, particularly fueled by private equity-backed buyers. So the question is your firm prepared to acquire, or are you about to be swallowed whole by a bigger, better-funded competitor? Today, we have Carl Feldman, Hinge's managing partner, here to dive into the data with us.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
Carl, I told you we'd get you on the podcast.
Finally, I'm finally here. How many, 10, 15 episodes in?
I think we're close to 20, but
I got to catch up. It's good. It's good to be here. You guys have done phenomenal. And this is a topic close to my heart.
That's why you're here. When we were talking about the show prep and the idea that we were having our friends from Sorren on talking specifically about the M&A world, we know that of the Hinges, you are definitely the person most plugged in.
I have to say it is a fun and exciting time. Lots of opportunities, no matter where you plug in to this kind of scenario. I have personally, my elevator pitch, I was pitching to VCs before I could drink. So this feels like fun to me, but I think there's, coming back to business, there's just a ton of opportunity, whether you're the small independent firm or the big platform that's bolting together strategically.
This particular research report that we're focusing on here, it mentions PE firms are particularly looking for companies with sticky client relationships, strong recurring revenue, also kind of diving in deeper to smaller entities with maybe superior technology. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing in the space right now for these firms? Like, how are these good quality deals? What is coming together and what's working there on the marketing and branding side to make these deals happen and to make sure that they're good fits?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do see a lot coming together, and this is independent of verticals. It could be accounting and financing. It could be in environmental engineering. It could be in technology. But one of the consistent threads, the ones that seem to have more positive headwind, have really paid attention to culture. And I'm not talking about soft culture like fluffy culture, as in this is how we do things. Is there a methodical go-to-market strategy? Is it accountable? Is data available? Even if it's on less sophisticated tools, does that culture exist that can be augmented by more access to these tools, investment, getting complementary services? I think a keen attention to that, both by owners and the investors, that seems to really accelerate the progress and realize the opportunity. When that's not quite there, the fundamentals, then it's more challenging. Not that it can't be done, but it's more challenging.
Well, I think that really has a lot of direct connotation and connection to even if PE wasn't involved. If you're not doing the fundamentals right, and you're in a professional services space where relationships and trust and all of these things are paramount, if you're not doing those things, no amount of PE throwing money at you is likely to solve that. In fact, they were
Absolutely.
not going to pay attention to you in the first place. So, Carl, let me ask you a question then. So, if an organization does decide to go on the offensive and acquire another business,
Yes.
what would you say is the single biggest marketing due diligence step or brand integration type challenge they must solve right from the jump to prevent the deal from being a disaster?
Well, I think what I mentioned earlier around culture and defining what cultural similarities they are goals shared, the approach and thinking, and this is different than collegial respect. You can have technicians and professionals that work fantastic, in a fantastic way together, but don't share the same ideas about financial responsibility or attribution or return on investments. Those are the things that you can keep an eye on without any fancy tool set right from the get-go. And then after that, I would say making sure that you have evidence of these things, doing your due diligence and understanding what kind of brand equity, and I'm saying real simple, reputation and visibility.
Right.
What does that look like coming in? And, Hinge is involved on the front end, sometimes afterwards when teams figure out, oh gosh, we should have done this before, or we've ridden along with, platform brands that are being acquired and, somehow those have a more methodical approach than the others. There are lots of ways we come into that mix, but that's a consistent thread. It was a real consistent thread, having that kind of similarity approach, and just kind of openness to understand what have you got coming in, how complementary is it, what do you have to build on. That can inform valuation and upside.
Carl, I'll put you on the spot here. What are you seeing kind of on the ground right now in terms of like things, I would say success stories, or maybe even like an example of like a nightmare? I mean, don't tell us who it is and stuff, but like, I don't know, just like to bring the words to life here. Do you got any stories for us that would, resonate with the audience?
What's interesting is that in this M&A scenario, sometimes the smartest professionals are just completely lost with integration challenges.
Yeah.
Culture, communication is a big, big challenge that is completely underestimated until it comes to the fore. Sometimes that happens before we're involved. Sometimes it's part of our job highlighting exactly what that is and what to do about it. But I think that just like, it's professional services, right? Because we can do this ourselves. We're great consultants. We're great professionals. We're brilliant scientists, technicians, what have you. There is a DIY kind of entrepreneurial push that can get us in trouble. And it's easy to look in the mirror and always find opportunities that way too. But I think that's the biggest thread that I see, being honest with yourself about that when it's time to call in help, and then actually follow the help and execute and be accountable to results. That's the secret sauce. I mean, it's not anything super fancy.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Carl. And thanks to all of our listeners for sticking with us here through another great episode of Spiraling Up. On behalf of the whole Hinge team, thanks for listening. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And for any of our listeners listening across all different audio platforms, leave us a little review. Give us 5 stars. It helps build the visibility of the show, get great guests on, and help us just continue to grow together. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.